Welcome, SalonQP. Thank you for coming along to this. We're very lucky we've got Selmoni, who's creative director at Vacheron Constantin, and has brought, has really stretched the boundaries at, possibly the most traditional of brands in some very exciting ways. And he's going to come tell you a little bit about what they're doing now and in the immediate future. Christian, thank you.
Thank you, James. Thank you. Okay, so welcome everybody. So we'll have a presentation of about half an hour. And this presentation is more about, let's say, the technical side of Vacheron Constantin. So we are going to speak mostly about complicated watches. And let's say the program will be, we will start with the history, some pieces from the heritage of Vacheron. Since Vacheron Constantin has been created in 1755, of course, we have a very long history. And we have some very interesting watches coming from the past, and we would like to show to you some of them. Then we will move into something, let's say, I could say, time of expertise, meaning also our product philosophy, our watchmaking art philosophy. And finally, a short part, which is maybe to have a look to the present products and to present complications, and to have a discussion later, maybe with you if you want, if you have any question about what we do. Okay, so to start with the history. So I'd like to also to show you some interesting pieces coming from our heritage, and to tell you that very early, in the very early years of Vacheron Constantin, we made some quite complicated watches. To start with a pocket watch with a quarter repeater from the very beginning of the 19th century. And a quite interesting example here. It's a lady's pendant watch, pocket watch, which is also a complicated watch since it has also a quarter repeater. These watches are part of our private museum, and they are very beautiful examples of the Vacheron Constantin Geneva style. In particular, if you have a look to the beautiful white enamel dials, for example. A very complex watch, a Grande Sonnerie. So this is a picture of our first Grande Sonnerie, a very beautiful design from 1827. And we will move quickly to the 20th century. At the beginning of the 20th century, big collectors started to come on the scene. And you have people, we had people like James Packard or Henry Graves, for example, who asked to famous brands to develop bespoke, made-to-order, complicated watches. And this is one of these watches made especially for James W. Packard. And this is a high complication with the chronograph, grande et petite sonnerie, and also quarter and half quarter indication. So this is a watch that Vacheron Constantin bought for its own museum in 2011 for a price of 1.8 million. Still in let's say the 20s, we have some nice examples coming also from our heritage of very complicated watches. I mean, not only one complication, but many or different complications included in one watch. I would say at the left, this is interesting, the Bois Rouvray. This is only a picture from our heritage department. We don't have the watch in our museum. But that's a very complex one, and I would say this one is a very famous Vacheron Constantin. This is the so-called the King Fouad. This is the watch that was presented to the King Fouad of Egypt by the Swiss colony in Egypt, and this is one of the most complex pocket watches of the 20th century, and we have also this watch in our museum. And the interesting information is that King Fouad had a son. Named Farouk, and Farouk was also interested in collecting watches, and following a visit in the Vacheron Constantin workshop in Geneva, he ordered to Vacheron Constantin a very unique, a very complicated watch, which is the so-called King Farouk. And this watch is now belonging to a private collector somewhere, and it has been the most complicated Vacheron Constantin watch ever made since the beginning. And was the most complicated Vacheron Constantin watch from 1937 until 2005. So especially I would point out the fact that this is a watch which has more than 800 components in the movement, which is absolutely huge. And this is really another example of these great pocket watches, highly complicated, of this era of the first half of the 20th century. Then one slide to talk about something very different. It looks very simple. It is, in fact, with only time only. But that's also a kind of, I would say, a complication. This is about ultra-thin or extra-slim designs. So we started to work with ultra-thin designs already in the first half of the 20th century. And we have this very particular watch in our museum. And so this is an amazing pocket watch in a very beautiful, let's say, Bauhaus almost style. And the movement of this watch is less than 1 millimeter thick, which is just simply amazing. And today we don't have such, I don't think we will be able to produce such watches in a series using such a thin movement, or at least it would be a fantastic challenge. But that's also another facet of complicated watches, even if the indications are not complicated by themselves. But that's really also a specialty. Then, talking about complicated watches, of course, chiming watches, such as minute repeaters, will make a big jump until the 90s, when Vacheron Constantin came back to the minute repeater, which is let's say the chiming watches are for collectors, the dream watches. And when Vacheron Constantin, when mechanical watchmaking came back at the end of the 80s, Vacheron Constantin started very early to think about recreating an offer of highly complicated watches, meaning the tourbillon and the minute repeater. And in 1989, Vacheron Constantin started to redevelop wristwatches, minute repeaters, based on historical blanks, movements, ébauches, coming from the 40s. And this has been the creation of the caliber 1755, which is really a super slim movement with only 3.28 millimeter thick. And we did a series of 200 watches using this movement in different editions. Let's say the plain, if I may say, model in platinum, perpetual calendar, and a very interesting and beautiful skeleton version at the end of the series. And so a very important year for us, it's 2005. This is really a cornerstone year for Vacheron Constantin, the 250th anniversary year, in which we presented a collection of complicated watches. And I think after this event, two watches are very much in the mind of the collectors. Of course, the first one, which is at the left, this is the Tour de Lille. So if we come back to the watch of King Farouk, the Tour de Lille movement has more than the 800 components. I think I'm not so sure, I'm not 100% sure, but I think now it's 857 components that we have in the movement, all handmade finished. And this watch has been considered by experts, watchmaking experts in 2005 as being the most complicated wristwatch ever made in series. So we did 7 examples of the Tour de Lille in 2005. And in addition, I would like also to show you another very complex creation that we did at this occasion, which is called the Saint-Gervais. The Saint-Gervais watch is a tourbillon with a perpetual calendar, using a movement with 250 hours of power reserve, thanks to 4 barrels. And this watch has been made in 55 examples, all in platinum. So 2 very nice examples of contemporary watches of Vacheron Constantin, very complicated. And this development has been for us a kind of springboard, let's say, for today's complication or high complications. So we have gained a lot of experience in the design and the development of the watches of the 250th anniversary, in which we have worked during more than four years. And thanks to this experience, we have been able to launch some very complex watches that are now part of our collection, starting with the caliber 2755, which is today the most complicated watch in our collection. It's a multi-high complication with a minute repeater, perpetual calendar, and tourbillon. And at the right, 2 years, in 2010, we've launched the Patrimony Traditionnel Calibre 2253, which is also based on the, let's say, the technology, or the mainsprings are based on the development of the Saint Gervais watch, with an increased power reserve from 10 days or 11 days until 14 days. So these are today's the two most complicated watches that we have in our collection. Also in the field of considering the caliber 2253, this is also an astronomical complication, since it has the equation of time and also the indication of sunrise and sunset that can be adapted to every city in the world, which we do it we do it for our clients. If one of our clients asks for the indication for his hometown or the place where he lives, we do it. We are able to do it for him as a service. So something important. So ultra complicated, very complicated watches, but also ultra thin. So this is our latest creation. This is the new Patrimony Contemporaine Calibre 1731. So this is a new minute repeater. This watch has been presented 1 month ago in Hong Kong for the Watches and Wonders exhibition. And this is a brand new minute repeater for us. And so we are coming back to the kind of, let's say, I would say the Vacheron Constantin's touch, talking about watch design. So it's for me a very interesting mix between a very, let's say, quiet watch. I mean, very discreet, only 3 hands, a very subtle dial, and this is the movement is a very complicated movement. It's a minute repeater. So that's a watch we presented 1 month ago, and that's really, it will be one of the hot watches for next SHH in January. So talking about maybe more into what is the Vacheron Constantin philosophy when we speak about complicated watches. I think first of all we have to talk about our product strategy, or what we intend to do. We want to be independent in the development and manufacturing of our own movement, and we started this strategy at the end of the 90s, meaning that we will have all the Vacheron Constantin mechanical watches will have in-house movements, and this is something where now we have let's say around 75 or 80% of our watches which have our own movements, and we are soon going to be fully independent. So what is important for us is also to say that we want to master every aspect of mechanical watchmaking, from very simple time-only designs up to the highest complications. And also, like you have some examples here, I will point out especially the ultra-thin caliber 1003, which is a Vacheron Constantin design of the 50s, with only 1.64 millimeter thick. And this is a movement that we have rebuilt, reconstructed in 2010, crafted in solid 18 karat gold. And to talk about high complications in Geneva, in the Vacheron Constantin workshops, we have 2 workshops for complicated watches. One what we call complications, in which we are working on small complications and middle complications up to the perpetual calendars, and then we have the high complications workshop, in which we have dedicated watchmaker or masters watchmakers who are working on the striking watches, for example. And I think what is important to mention is that there is a minimum of 15 years of experience to be able to work on such complications. So you have to imagine that a young watchmaker will start at Vacheron Constantin at the age of 20 or 22. And depending on his skills, he will be able to work on this workshop 15 years later. And during 2 years, he has to be under the tutelage of a master. And for example, at Vacheron Constantin, we have Christian Lefrançois, who is a fantastic master watchmaker who is now retired. And he is still now supporting younger watchmakers, training them how to let's say, assemble these striking watches in the best manner possible. And we have in Geneva, we have today, we have 4 watchmakers who are working on striking watches. So you can imagine on the Vacheron Constantin now is a company in which we have on a worldwide basis 1,000 people. And in Geneva, in our facilities, we have 350 people working on the production and only 4 master watchmakers working on striking watches. So that's really, I think, very important to mention because this is really the apex of high watchmaking. And we are working really in the very traditional way. Like I was mentioning at the very beginning, Vacheron Constantin has a very long history. And we are really following we are very stuck to our traditions. If you visit our facilities, you will see we have few machines. We have many watchmakers. And we have also a lot of specialists working into movement decorations. And because we think that this is the way that we are going to continue with our authentic tradition of fine watchmaking. And it's interesting to mention that if you go and discuss with a master watchmaker working on striking watches, he has, depending on the movement, he may have more than 1,000 personal tools to assemble a caliber. And these tools, they are mostly made by themselves, meaning that they are using them maybe once in a year or once every 2 years, but they are really still manufacturing their own tools to assemble our movements. And that's really in the great tradition of very high-end watches. And of course, it's depending on the models. Some watches may need 3 months necessary for the assembling of the movements. And one slide to talk about something very important for us, which is the Geneva Hallmark or the Geneva Seal. This is an official label of excellence, I would say, in fine watchmaking, which is belonging to the state of Geneva. And this label was created in 1886 in order to protect the Geneva fine watchmaking against brands who are coming from outside the area of Geneva and writing the Geneva on their dials and offering a less good quality, talking from the movement point of view. So this is a very demanding certification, especially considering the aspects of finishing. And this is for us a guideline for all the developments that we do. So we are really following the Geneva Hallmark certification. And this is not only a label of origin, but this is a label of craftsmanship, because especially talking about the hand finishing on the movements, this is something which is made by hand and not by machine. And also durability. Durability, it's an important aspect, because when we receive at Vacheron Constantin watches that are coming from more than 100 years, or even more than that, and we open these watches for servicing, and we see that some of the watches, they don't have any rust. And this is also due to this care about the finishing, the polishing of the steel that protects movement from oxidation. So that's also a very important aspect. Speaking about handmade finishing, so like I was mentioning, this is for us the signature of fine watchmaking. And we take great care into maintaining this handmade finishing, even it's very time-consuming. And there is no school for, let's say, movement decorators. The specialists who are decorating movements, they have to be trained. And we have our internal school for movement decorators. And it's necessary to be trained more than 1.5 years to be able to work as a decorator on movement. So you can imagine how important it is for us to invest on such people And after that, to maintain, to keep these people in the company, that's a very important investment. But this is also the signature of our products, where we take the greatest care into this human added value inside our movements. Some examples about when we speak about movement decoration, quickly. So this is a view of the 14 days powers of tourbillon, in which you can see the tourbillon arm at the left. So this is necessary to have 10 hours of hand beveling. We do really hand beveling on the tourbillon bars, and that's something which is absolutely another signature of our movement finishing. At the right, you see the tourbillon arm and the whole carriage, the tourbillon carriage, and this is 1 week of handmade finishing to do that. So you can imagine, and this is really for us, we still want to continue into this philosophy. We don't want to use machines to replace the hand of man, and so, of course, as you may imagine, we are not able to increase the production by double digits every year, because we need again and again to train people and to develop slowly but slowly. But that's really our philosophy. One slide also to explain to you something very important. So we have a commitment, which is to we repair every Vacheron Constantin watch since the very beginning, meaning that if somebody is bringing to us a watch from the early from let's say 17, I don't know, at the end of the 18th century, we will be able to service this watch, even if we have to recreate some components, we will do it. So this is something that we do. And for this reason, we are very much concerned by using the best materials for our new developments. In other words, we tend to maintain classic, traditional materials in our movements, rather to go for other technological choices, because we have this commitment in mind, and we ask ourselves the question: in the next 100 years, will we be able to repair such a component using that technology? So for us, we always tend to use the very classic metals or materials, because we have this commitment in mind. And so that's another aspect of our product development philosophy. To come back to also ultra-thin watches, and also still in the movement philosophy of Vacheron Constantin, of course, this is the ultra-thin complicated watches are really really interesting from the watchmaking point of view, since you really have to have special skills to assemble such watches, because you have less space, and it's a major difficulty, especially talking about striking watches, when the gongs are very close one from the other, and it's very, very long and difficult to assemble. So it's really for us a challenge to develop not only sophisticated or well-engineered complications, but also using the additional complication of an ultra-thin design. And even for very thin designs, such in the new Patrimony Contemporaine minute repeater, we still maintain the standards of quality of Vacheron, meaning that the finishings are the same, are really on the top. And we implement also in our new movements some technical innovations and clever solutions for ultra-thin designs, such, for example, in the new caliber 1731, we have a silent system for the minute repeater. In comparison with former designs, we were using anchor systems, and the anchor systems have a residual noise that you can hear when you wind up the minute repeater sequence. And in this watch, we have an in-house development, which is a speed governor using both centripetal and centrifugal forces. That's a device that we have invented in 2007 and that we have in our movement here. And so Talking about minute repeaters and high complications, we presented last month the new Patrimony Contemporain minute repeater, and this is the thinnest minute repeater available in the market, a manual winding with a thickness of less than 4 millimeter. So that's a major achievement for us, and it's really very much connected with the brand aesthetics about refinement, balance, sophistication, elegance. And just also one side to talk about ultra-thin and open-worked movements. The so-called skeleton watches is another specialty of Vacheron Constantin. And this is also a great combination, I think, between high watchmaking technique and also decorative crafts. And here on the screen you see at the left, this is an ultra-thin automatic movement, caliber 1120, which is, let's say, open work and then engraved. And at the right, this is a close-up of the engraving on an open work tourbillon. And you can really see how I would say, how it's difficult for the engraver to work on such surfaces. And this combination of complications and skeleton and engraving is for us a very interesting, let's say, specialty. And we might see in the near future some very interesting development using both this technique and these decorative crafts. I would like also now to speak quickly about some complications in the Vacheron Constantin portfolio. I don't want to talk about all the complications of the brand, but maybe to point on some interesting complications that we have launched with particular characteristics. First of all, I'd like to say that Vacheron Constantin has 7 collections. We are like a kind of generalistic brand in the high end of watchmaking. And we have 2 main collections, which are Patrimony and Malt. And we have complicated models in most of the families, Quai de Lille and also overseas, Métier d'Art with dragging hours. And finally, we have a dedicated workshop, which is Cabinotiers. Cabinotiers is the bespoke department of Vacheron Constantin. I have one example to show you right after. So, quickly to demonstrate some, I would say, typical complications from Vacheron Constantin, combining the complexity and the design. To start with the Malt tourbillon. The Malt tourbillon was, it's interesting to mention that it was the first movement that Vacheron Constantin redeveloped in the 90s. It started to be re-engineered in the end of the 90s and was presented in the year 2000 in the Malt collection. And this is, I think, a very beautiful example of tourbillon, which has the shape of the Malta case. So it's a tonneau-shaped tourbillon, a very nice example of Vacheron Constantin design and craftsmanship as well. Second example of mixing complications and innovation. So this is the World Time. The World Time was presented 2 years ago. And this is the World Time is, we have developed our World Time based on world timers from the 30s, mostly from design from Louis Cotier, who has been working for Vacheron Constantin and few other famous names in Geneva. And we have rethought the Louis Cotier system, but we found a way to display all the time zones of the world on the dial. So that's a very interesting modern complication. And we also have on the watch face the indication of day and night, which is made by a rotating sapphire crystal, which is showing areas in the world where there is a night and others where there is the day. So that's a very interesting complication in our portfolio. To go on, we can talk about a complication which is very close from the heart of Vacheron Constantin, if I may say. So this is the classic chronograph. Our brand has a long history of manual winding chronograph, especially I would say watches from the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, where you have some very beautiful designs. And these watches, they reach high auction prices. And this is a movement which is, let's say, its diameter is 29 millimeter, and the total thickness of the movement is only 6.8 millimeter. And in this tiny space, we have 2.2 meters of spring, of metal spring. So that's really amazing. And that's one of our latest high complications, the 14 days power reserve tourbillon. A look at the most complex Vacheron Constantin watch in our portfolio. This is the caliber 2755, and this is today, really the most sophisticated that we have. And you, on the close-up at the left and at the right on the one, you see this silent system, this speed governor, which is really, avoiding any noise during the striking seconds. And this is innovation from Vacheron Constantin. And that's really the most complex design so far that we have in our collection, the caliber 2755. And so I'd like to finish this overview of the collection with the Atelier Cabinotiers. So it's a very interesting service. This is a service that we have launched in 2006, in which we are really offering bespoke timepieces made to order watches, meaning that our clients are coming to us and asking us to develop for themselves a watch according to their tastes. So we, since 2006, we made quite a lot of such watches, from, let's say, simple design up to very, very high complications. And there is obviously almost no limits except the technical limits to what we can do. And at the left, this is a nice example of a super high complication. This is the so-called Vladimir watch. It's a code name. And this watch has 17 complications and was made 3 years ago for a unique client. It's really a bespoke watch. And we, for example, we have some projects that we have under development since now, I would say, 4 years. And we have some watches who are going to be presented to our clients not before 2015. So in fact, we have some developments that need 5 years or 5 to 7 years of development, very complicated watches, and a little bit sometimes frustrating for us because we of course, we cannot always have the possibility to show these watches to the public because they are mostly devoted to a final customer. Sorry. So I'd like to finish this presentation with a movie concerning our new minute repeater, Patrimoine Contemporain, and then we can have some time to discuss, to answer to your questions about Vacheron Constantin. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Christian.
Thank you very much.
I suppose the first thing is, do we have some questions about what we've just seen? We've covered a lot of movements and some really truly remarkable technical achievements. So if anyone's got any questions burning, otherwise we can come back to that.
Yes.
Where does accuracy figure in the complications? How accurate are these watches?
Sorry?
How accurate are these watches? What's the timekeeping?
Oh, I would say they can be considered as chronometer. The accuracy of complications is not different from, let's say, time-only watches. So accuracy is really something which is always very important for us. So there is the complication should not create or should not create a situation in which the watch should be less accurate. So that's very important. I would say, to continue on that answer, I would say there are some challenges when you speak about accuracy. One of the challenges is ultra-thin designs. Of course, it's much more difficult to maintain the same accuracy in a smaller design in comparison with a bigger design, of course. So I would say it's, for example, I was speaking quickly about the ultra-thin mechanical caliber 1003, which is only 1.64 millimeter. And I remember in the 90s, when I joined the company, we had in our department, in the time adjusting department, only 2 people able to work on this movement to achieve the chronometer, the accuracy result. So that's really very important and it's very demanding on ultra-thin design to maintain the accuracy. So that's maybe the difference, the biggest difference between let's say a complication in which you have enough space and an ultra-thin design. It's very difficult to make a proper time adjustment.
Excellent. Have either of you guys got comments on that?
Well, the whole accuracy issue has become a situation like manufacturer status, and it's divided people that are watch enthusiasts. In fact, I just heard a visitor to the show talking about what he reads in QP, that he's only interested in the articles about actual technical elements in watchmaking and doesn't care about the lifestyle and the art. When you get into what Vacheron is doing now in particular, you have to balance the demands of the artistry and housing all those complications with the demands of the timing. And if you speak to any watchmaker, given enough time, the most basic movement of all, such as a unitask manual, can be regulated to within plus or minus 2 seconds. Unfortunately, the value of the movement doesn't justify the hours required to do that. So what you come to is a happy compromise. And a friend of mine who in fact does collect Vacherons sits there every night with a Jungens satellite-timed clock to see what the accuracy is of his watches, and it actually keeps him awake at night if they go outside of plus or minus 2 or 3 seconds. With all due respect to all of you, anyone who's worried about a watch that's accuracy is finer than a minute a day needs a new life.
Great. Okay. I've got a question. You were talking about the Geneva Shield, the Constantin of Genève, and as some of you may know, the regulations have changed quite substantially in the last couple of years. And I want to ask if you, as your experience of the new setup, has it been positive? Are there things that maybe need to be further developed in this, or
Yes.
how's it going?
Yeah, in fact, the biggest change is the fact that historically the Geneva Hallmark was concerning the movement only. And so with the new rules, the watch has to be certified. Meaning that for Vacheron Constantin, we had to adapt some fixing elements between the movement and the case to be okay with the new Geneva Hallmark standards. So for us, it hasn't been a complex issue. I would say, in addition, now we have testing days. We have to leave the watches for observation in a dedicated room. So we have created in our manufacture a dedicated space in which the people of Time Lab, which is the company which is controlling the Geneva Hallmark specification, they can come and they can do themselves the controls. So that's the major change. Sorry, but for us, I would say this is. We think that these changes are going in the right direction because it's important for our clients to know that not only the movement has been controlled by an official label such as the Geneva Hallmark, but the whole watch is certified. And in every new watch development, we have to show to the Geneva Hallmark Commission not only the components of the movement, but the components of the case of the watch. So that's new, and I think it goes really into going further with this quality label. So for us, it's really.
And do you think the sort of the market out there is understanding that change yet, or is it still to happen?
I think for the public, if I may say, it's not easy to communicate about the Geneva Seal certification because this is quite technical, and this is maybe horological jargon, I don't know how to say in English, sometimes to talk about decoration. So it has always been difficult for us to really go deeper into the Geneva Hallmark certification and what's important about movement finishing. So that's a long work. This is why in the presentation of today I wanted to show some slides showing movement decorators working by hand. So now I think that this is our mission, Vacheron Constantin, to explain and to present to our client what is really the Geneva Hallmark. And I think this is something that we want to do in the years to come. We really think that this is a very important label for us. And this is more than a label, I would say. This is a philosophy of excellent watchmaking for us.
Indeed. So there's some at the back. Perhaps I missed you first time.
How does Vacheron differentiate itself from Atelier Cabinotiers in terms of tradition and complexity?
I would say that both companies have many things in common. We're coming also from Geneva. We have a long story. I think that we have some differences. If I may say, I think that Vacheron Constantin has the style of Vacheron Constantin watches is a little bit different. It's difficult to make a comparison between our brand and the competitor, so I cannot go really, I have to choose my words. But I think that Vacheron Constantin, if we look at this, the heritage of this company, we see that Vacheron Constantin has a great diversity into, let's say, the aesthetics, the design shape, the shapes. Sometimes the Vacheron has a kind of a classic brand with a kind of a twist. And maybe we are less Calvinist than some other brands. And, but I think that both companies, I think both companies have worked to really offer the very best of the Geneva fine watchmaking. But I think that the difference might be in the style, or let's say that, in other words, personally, I think that Vacheron Constantin is more Latin than the other one. So, but it's not. That's just a difference. I mean, you may like the other version, or you may like the more Latin version. That's fine for me.
Excellent. Very good answer.
Okay.
I'm impressed. I've got one more very sort of. This is a very geeky question, but you were talking about. The length of time it takes to become, to work in the complications department, etc. And you're talking about the way you're master watchmakers.
Yes.
do you use that word just sort of generally, or do you have, okay, this person has now become a master watchmaker officially, or is it just, this guy's been doing it for 20 years, he is a master watchmaker?
No, like I was explaining, it's well, for a watchmaker, sometimes when they go out of school, they dream maybe to work on probably two areas. One is the after-sales service, because you have a lot of different products and it's always a challenge to repair a watch coming from years ago, and every day it's different. And the other challenge is mostly, I would say, on complications. And I think really that it's, I wouldn't take the word selection, but you have very skilled watchmaker in which we think that they might be, they could be identified as possibly master watchmakers on high complications. And really, in the high complication workshop, they are really under the tutelage of a master watchmaker. And this is very important for us because we are coming back to the tradition of Geneva in the 18th century with the Cabinotiers, in which you really have this notion of master and apprentice. And that's something that we are really continuing in our workshops.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we're probably, unless anyone's got a burning question, probably out of time on this one. So, Christian, thank you so much for coming and giving us your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.